Hey guys, it's Christy and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me. Today we're going to be playing with the new Anastasia Rose Metals palette. So before we get into it, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel before you leave. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy, and let's get into it. Alright guys, so I know there are a ton of videos up on this palette already, but I did pick it up. It took forever to come to me, so I thought we would just play with it today and do 3 looks, 1 palette. I am just absolutely dying to play with this one. So you've probably already seen this packaging. This is like that beautiful worn leather packaging. I think I might be the only person who is super in love with it, but I am. I think it's so beautiful. I think it looks so classy and elegant. I really, really love this packaging. And then inside we have the palette. Now, my opinion of the packaging doesn't fully translate to the inside. I do wish they had done more of like a black backing around the shades, just so you could really see the shades a little bit better and not be thrown off by the metallic packaging. I feel like that does that for me. However, this is absolutely beautiful, and this one is supposed to have a ton more product than their usual palettes. And also this has a 12-month shelf life and it is made in the USA. So all pretty standard, but I am the most excited to get playing with this one. So I think I'm going to do 1 look on each eye and then show you those and then take them off and then do the final look. So let's just hop into it. I think I'm going to start with the shade Ashes. I think that's going to be my ideal crease shade for a lot of these looks. I feel like right away there wasn't as much kick up from that shade as there normally is. In these palettes there typically is a lot of kick up. These are typically very soft shadows, but I don't feel like there was as much going in initially. And I know they're also releasing the Glam to Go palette, I think a little bit later in October. I was initially planning to pick it up, but I don't think I will because I think it looks so much like the baby one from Lawless, both in packaging and shades. I don't think they're shade for shade dupes, but they're so similar that I don't feel like I would need both. This palette is one that is so much prettier when you see it in person as well. It's got pops of green and a couple pops of more pinky rosy tones, but overall it's just a very neutral wearable palette. Again, I think the backdrop of the packaging kind of throws off the actual shades. Okay, I think I want to go into Noble. And I should also mention the shade Dune here is also supposed to be a pressed pigment, so it is marked not safe for the eye area, but we all know what that means. Those are kind of to be taken with a grain of salt. Given that it is a matte and not a pressed glitter, I think that just means it probably has ingredients that can cause staining, but also some people do have reactions too. I typically have never had issues with reactions to different shadows or staining, but one thing I do recommend if you're worried about staining is to always go in with a good primer, set it down with a powder, and then that should kind of protect you from staining. I feel like that built up really quickly and was very, very easy to work with. And then I kind of want to take Element all over the lid. On a brush, the shade looks a little darker than maybe I intended. That is pretty though. I do want to just try it with a finger to see if it makes it pop a little bit more. It does. And that shade definitely had more brown to it than I expected. Now I'm going to go into the shade Heavenly. This just looks like a super beautiful shade. It is very soft and I went in way too rough. So I'm just actually going to take a finger into that one and just go into that inner corner. This is a really beautiful kind of champagne shimmer that almost has a greenish reflect to it. Okay, and for the sake of trying a few shades, I'm going to go into Rose Fire as well. I just feel like this look is very dark, so I just kind of want to add that on top, and it's definitely going to take this look in a different direction, but I think I'm going to like it more. I kind of like the way that lightens things up a little bit. I do like that better. I think these all performed really well, and I'm also noticing only a tiny bit of fallout, because typically with these I do need to do my eyes first. Okay, so not my favorite look. I definitely went a little dark, a little smokier than I typically would. I do like it better once I added Rose Fire. I do think Rose Fire kind of brightened things up a little bit. I don't think I would create this look again, but for the sake of playing with the shades, I don't mind. Alright, so I just added some mascara on this side. I think that Rose Fire gave it a nicer brightness. I'm just not somebody who likes super dark looks on my eyes. Yeah, so I'm just not a huge fan of how it came together, but that's what this is all about. So now I'm going to go into Sun Rose. I'm going to use that as my crease shade. And this is actually more of a sequin shade. It's a matte, but it has some glitter particles in it. I'm going to use that as my crease shade. This is a really pretty crease shade too. Between this one and Ashes, I think they're going to be my favorites. And just because this one has little, I guess, glitter particles does not mean it's going to be a terrible crease shade. You can use whatever you want in the crease, but when it's this type of more sequin shade, any sort of sparkle tends to blend away when you're putting it on the lid. The only way to really preserve the sparkle in one of these types of sequiny shades is to pat it on with a finger. These are super blendable though. Definitely very pigmented, but super blendable. Okay, so I'm gonna go into Noble again for that outer corner. And my vision for this look is actually to play with some more of those greenier shades. So from there, I think I'm gonna take Haze. I'm gonna take that on a finger and put that all over the lid. Oh, that's so pretty. This reminds me the littlest bit of Wings from the Nouveau palette. This is really pretty. Okay, and I'm just going to take a little bit of Nocturne on the outer corner. Okay, so I'm really liking that green, especially how the two tied together. So this time I think I'm going to go into Heavenly again for the inner corner, but it's going to look way better on this side. Looking at it now in the pan, I can definitely see the green tint to it, but I really didn't before. It was more of like a pearly kind of a thing. Yeah, that's pretty. It's really pretty with the green look. Let me pop off camera, put on some mascara. I'll come back to show you the final look, and then we will get into look number 3. So here is the first look. Definitely came out a little bit more bronze. And then look number 2, we definitely went with the greens. I definitely like look number 2 the most. But let me take this off and then we will do a final look. I'm probably going to leave my mascara on and just work around that. Alright, I am back for the third and final look. And I think I'm going to go into Sun Rose in the crease. This palette describes itself as supposed to be like a 90s glam, like a 90s grungy glam. And I would say that's true, and for that reason I do think I'm having a little bit of a hard time creating a look that I really like with this one. Not that the palette isn't good, it's a beautiful palette. I just think that I'm struggling because it's not my typical kind of look. So while I think this is a super pretty palette and I do think it's very high quality, it's probably just not my favorite color story. Okay, now I'm just going to go into Dune, which is supposed to be that pressed pigment shade. I do think the quality of this palette is phenomenal. These shades really do blend together super well. They play off each other so nicely. It's just, I think I'm being messed up by the grunginess, if that makes sense, but I still think it's pretty. This Dune shade is quite a nice outer corner deepening shade as well. Okay, now I'm going to take Rose Fire, as I should have from the very beginning, on a finger, and I'm gonna put that all over the lid. And this look is just really gonna let it shine. This is gonna be a really pretty fall look. That's pretty. That's what I should have done from the very beginning. Okay, I'm just gonna grab some of my face highlight and put that on the inner corner. And I'm just dipping into the Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk palette for this. Kind of the blush I've been wearing every single day since I tested it out. Right, I'm just gonna add a little bit more mascara as well. All right, so this is the final look. This is also my favorite. So let's talk about this palette. I think it's beautiful. Again, like I said, I love the outer packaging. I like the color story. I do think I'm a little bit thrown off by the metallic background, but I do still think it's very pretty. I love that you get some light transition shades and some deeper shades as well. I love that there's a good mix of mattes and shimmers as well as some of those more sequin shades. I don't think they're necessary, but they're fine. This probably isn't my favorite color story. This does describe itself as being like a 90s grungy glam kind of a palette, and I do see that, but I'm actually not somebody who's super into grungy looks, and I knew that, so maybe that's why this one just isn't my favorite color story. I still think it's pretty. I still want to figure out how to work with these pinks. I did try that and I didn't like how it turned out. I did like the look I created with the greens. I like this final look we've created that I could create with any palette that I have. The first look I created, I liked it a little bit more before I messed with it, but overall, I like this palette. This is one that I'm going to need to play with a little bit more in order to really gather my thoughts, and I just need to work with the color story a lot more. I will say I do think the quality is absolutely excellent. These are slightly less soft than a lot of their previous palettes, so you're not getting as much kick up, which is really nice. There still is some, but not nearly as much as in some of the previous palettes, but I do think this is pretty. I like that you have these neutral oranges. I like that you have a lot of greens and these pinks, although I don't feel like there's enough to make those really work, but I can definitely see how these are very 90s inspired pinks. I can definitely see that. So I'm definitely going to keep playing with this, getting to know this palette a little bit more. I do think this is a beautiful palette. The quality is excellent between this one and Nouveau. I need a little bit more time to make up my mind which one I like better. They both have a lot of green in them. Comparing very quickly to the Nouveau palette, they both have a lot of greens to them. I do find Nouveau slightly easier to work with, but looking at it, I like Rose Metals better. So again, I just need some more time to play with both before I can give you a definitive opinion. But overall, I do think this is a pretty palette. I think this is great quality. I think you just have to really like the color story. And I also do think this is a lot prettier in person than it is in photos. Overall, I do think it's a pretty palette, and I'm definitely going to keep playing with it and keep enjoying it and trying to create more. So that is it for me today. Thank you so very much for watching. Let me know down below if you picked this one up. I love hearing from you guys. If you're new here, I hope you'll consider subscribing before you go. I do upload at least 3 new videos every single week. Thank you again so very much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!